Hello. So today we're going to go ahead and get on the project of cleaning up this vintage brass Eagle oiler. I was going to, it's got a lot of dents and dings around the perimeter of it. It has like a ribbed wall on the perimeter. And I was going to make a die out of this piece of wood. I was going to try and sand a radius into it and a lip to kind of coincide with the corrugations in there. But I think I need something heavier that I can either weld something to fasten properly, or just enough bulk to it that's got some mass and whatnot, even though we are just tinning brass back into shape. But I think I'm going to use, I have this old pin here, and I think what I'm going to do is run some passes of weld around part of the radius, and it's real close to the diameter of the oiler can here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And but first, before anything, I want to make sure that I can get it apart, because if I can't get it apart, the rest of that is pretty much regardless. That way there's just no other room, no way to get anything in there between the pump mechanism and the draw tube and everything. So first things first, I'll get this guy apart. Once I get it apart and I know I can get my die in there, then I'll go ahead and we'll work on welding a rib on there and get it filed in a shape to use it as a template to try and pop some of them corrugations back out and get this thing put back into shape. So here we go. So here we go. This is her all finished up. It's not the outcome that I was looking for, but nonetheless, it looks and works great. Everything is straightened up. The tip was a little messed up on it. The base was a little messed up. It wouldn't hardly sit up straight. You set it down, it kept falling over. This little skirt was all banged out of shape. It is loaded with little tiny dings just all over it. And I used this old metal pin here for a die. I ran a bead of weld on here and just followed the radius of the pin, and then just cleaned it up so it was smooth and straight, and rounded the corners off a little bit so it didn't dig in. And just when I slid it in, I could feel it hit the first rib, and I just made sure I counted my ribs and knew where I was at. And this is really pretty thin. I was really surprised how thin it was. And for the most part, I was able to just use my thumbs and roll it and keep pressure and kind of roll the big dents, because it did have some really big dents, like the whole rib or the corrugation was missing. And I was able to get those established, and between that and some body hammers and a small ball peen hammer, was able to get the ribs reestablished. And it also was way out of round all the way up and throughout. And then at the top, it was really out of round. The cap was having a hard time going on, and the threads were kind of smashed. Well, the cap was too, so obviously it had been somewhere and fell, because the cap was, and the threads were smashed on the cap. And I took the other side of the pin, and I was able to, because it has a little chamfer on the end, I ground the chamfer off on basically half of it, just because it's a hard pin, and made it real square, and then just ground a notch into it so it still has the radius. And then I used that on the cap to get in that groove and kind of like pull and hook in and push and kind of get the threads accordion back out. And likewise on here, I did the same thing, was able to get it in and just work it around and get the threads accordion back out and get it really pretty much round. The lid has 2 cracks in it. It's got one over here and one right here, and it's ironic. You can kind of see a little oblong shape of it there, actually on both sides. There's nothing I can do with that. I don't want to work it too much because it'll end up just splitting all the way through. The pump and everything worked great. I had to do nothing with that other than just took the trigger and the spout off of it and just cleaned everything up. And then the base, it had a really bad leak somewhere on here, and I don't know if you could tell in the video, but I took and cleaned it up with acetone, scraped it out, scrubbed it out, rinsed it out several times, wiped it down real good, let it dry out, and then I put flux in there, and then I coiled up. I had some really small solder, and I was able to coil that up and get it packed down in there. And I actually think I may, because it was so fine, may have overheated it, but nonetheless, it sealed it up so it doesn't leak anymore. Somewhere in here, that may be a crease. I think somewhere in here I thought I saw a crack, but I had it full of acetone and it didn't leak. So the oil is way thicker than the acetone, so I don't think I'll ever have to worry about that. I'm not sure, do a little homework if these had a gasket in there or not. I have some cork, but it's really thick. I think I want some really thin cork and make a gasket for it. But nonetheless, the lid it goes on beautifully now. It snugs right up. It works great. So I'm gonna take and real quick fill this guy up with some oil and get him going, and then it's going right on this bench here. I'll be honest with you, I kind of like the patina a little bit. I mean, it's real shiny and cleaned up, but as I use it, it'll get kind of dirty, and all the little dings and nicks will get dirt stuck in them, and the brass will dull down, and it'll get a really nice looking patina to it. It'll fit right in with everything on my bench here. The only other thing I could do, if I had like a lathe or something, I could make a pair of dies to make like a planishing tool. I don't know if anybody's familiar with how a knurling attachment works on a lathe. There's a push knurler and then a pressure knurler. I could do something like that and have a pair of jaws made with interchangeable dies, have one for the rib and then have a negative for the other side, and put pressure on it and just work it back and forth and basically planish all the little dings and dents out of it. Now, I don't know what that would do for the size of it, but that would be the really only other way to get all the little tiny dings and nicks out of it. Other than that, maybe a whole lot of patience with a hammer and like a die like this. But nonetheless, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a far cry better than what it was. If you stuck with me this long, I appreciate it. You're awesome. I appreciate you watching. Thanks again, Big Vic, for sending this to me. I love this thing. I have absolutely loved these things for a while. Big Vic, thanks a lot, man. So, see you on the next one.